Imagine this. It's 3 a.m. and you're lying awake staring at the ceiling. Your heart is racing, though you're not sure why. The room is quiet, but inside your mind, a storm is brewing. Thoughts spiral, worries about tomorrow, regrets about yesterday, a vague dread about something you can't quite name. You try to push it away, to tell yourself it's irrational, but the feeling clings to you like damp air. This is fear. Not the kind that comes with a clear threat, a lion in the jungle, a car swerving toward you, but something deeper, more elusive. It's the fear that lives in the shadows of your soul, whispering questions you're afraid to answer. What if I fail? What if I'm not enough? What if the world sees who I really am? Fear is universal. It's as old as humanity itself, etched into our bones from the days when survival meant running from predators. But today, in a world of relative safety, why does fear still haunt us? Why does it grip us in moments of silence, in the midst of success, or even in the quiet joy of a seemingly perfect day? From the outside, fear might seem like a weakness, a flaw to be overcome with grit and determination. But Carl Jung, the great explorer of the human psyche, saw fear differently. To him, fear was not just an obstacle, it was a messenger, a guide, a doorway to the deepest parts of ourselves. Jung understood that fear is not something to be banished or suppressed, it is a voice from the unconscious, speaking in a language we've forgotten how to hear. It's a signal that something within us is out of alignment, a cry from the soul longing for wholeness. In his work, Jung didn't dismiss fear as a mere emotion. He saw it as a symbol, a thread that, if followed with courage, could lead us to the buried treasures of our inner world. This is not a story of defeating fear, but of listening to it, of understanding what it reveals about who we are and who we might become. In this exploration, we'll dive into the psychology of fear through Jung's lens, unraveling its roots, its disguises, and its profound potential for transformation. We'll weave together stories of real people, Jung's timeless wisdom, and the universal truths that fear unveils. This is not just a journey into the mind, it's a journey into the heart of what it means to be human. Fear begins quietly. It might appear as a knot in your stomach before a big presentation, a hesitation to speak your truth, or a recurring nightmare that leaves you shaken. Sometimes it's louder, a panic attack that feels like the world is collapsing, or a paralyzing dread that keeps you from taking a step toward your dreams. But whether it's a whisper or a scream, fear always carries a message. It's not random, it's not meaningless, it's a signal that something within you is calling for attention. Consider Sarah, a 35-year-old marketing executive. By all accounts, she's successful, well-paid, respected, with a beautiful family and a home that looks like it belongs in a magazine. But every night, as she lies in bed, a familiar dread creeps in. She replays conversations from the day, dissecting every word for signs of failure. She imagines losing her job, her reputation, her security. She doesn't know why these thoughts haunt her. She has everything she's supposed to want. Yet the fear persists, a shadow that follows her no matter how brightly her life shines. Sarah's story is not unique. Fear doesn't discriminate between the successful and the struggling, the young and the old, the confident and the insecure. It's a universal experience, a thread that runs through every human life. But what is fear, really? Is it just a biological response, a remnant of our evolutionary past? Or is it something more, a clue to the deeper workings of the psyche? Carl Jung would argue the latter. To Jung, fear was not merely a reaction to external threats, but a manifestation of the unconscious. He believed that the human psyche is a vast, uncharted landscape, filled with archetypes, symbols, and hidden forces that shape our thoughts and behaviors. Fear, in this view, is not an enemy to be vanquished, but a guide, pointing us toward the parts of ourselves we've ignored or repressed. It's a signal that something within us is out of balance, yearning for integration. Jung's concept of the shadow is central to understanding fear. The shadow, as he described it, is the part of ourselves we hide not because it's inherently evil, but because it doesn't fit the image we want to project to the world. It's the anger we swallow to seem polite, the vulnerability we bury to appear strong, the dreams we abandon to fit in. The shadow is everything we've pushed away, and fear is often its voice, calling us to confront what we've tried to forget. For Sarah, Her fear wasn't just about losing her job or status. It was about the parts of herself she'd suppressed to build her perfect life, the creative dreams she'd abandoned, the insecurities she'd buried, the authentic self she'd tucked away to meet others' expectations. Her fear was a message from her shadow, urging her to look deeper, to reclaim the parts of herself she'd left behind. Fear often feels like an external force, something that attacks us from the outside. We blame circumstances, a demanding boss, an uncertain economy, a turbulent relationship. But Jung taught that fear is rarely about the external world alone. It's a reflection of an inner conflict, a tension between who we are and who we're trying to be. When we feel fear, it's because some part of us is at war with itself. Take Michael, a 28-year-old software developer. Michael is brilliant, but he's haunted by a constant sense of inadequacy. Every time he starts a new project, he's gripped by fear that he'll fail, that his colleagues will see through his facade and realize he's not as talented as they think. To cope, Michael works harder, stays up later, perfects every line of code. He tries to control his fear by controlling his environment, but the more he strives for perfection, the more anxious he becomes. It's a vicious cycle. His fear drives him to control, and his need for control fuels his fear. Jung would see Michael's struggle as a classic example of the ego's battle with the shadow. The ego, the conscious part of ourselves that wants to be in charge, craves certainty and control. It builds walls to protect us from vulnerability, failure, or rejection. But the shadow, that hidden reservoir of repressed emotions and desires, doesn't stay silent. It pushes back, manifesting as fear, anxiety, or self-doubt. The more we try to suppress it, the louder it becomes. Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." For Michael, his fear wasn't just about failing at his job, it was about the parts of himself he refused to acknowledge. Deep down, he feared that his true self, imperfect, uncertain, human, wasn't enough. His perfectionism was an attempt to silence that fear, but it only made the shadow stronger. This dynamic is at the heart of why fear feels so persistent. When we try to fight it with willpower or logic, we're only addressing the surface. The real source of fear lies deeper, in the parts of ourselves we've rejected. To move through fear, we must stop running from it and start listening to what it's trying to tell us. Jung's perspective on fear was profoundly spiritual. He believed that human beings are not just rational creatures, but beings driven by a deep need for meaning, connection, and transcendence. Fear, in this view, is not just a psychological phenomenon, it's a spiritual one. It's a hunger for something greater, a longing to reconnect with the sacred within ourselves. In ancient cultures, fear was often seen as a gateway to the divine. Rituals involving fasting, solitude, or even psychoactive substances were designed to confront fear head-on, to strip away the ego's defenses and open the individual to a deeper truth. These rituals weren't about escaping fear, but embracing it as a teacher, a guide to the mysteries of existence. In our modern world, we've lost much of this symbolic framework. Fear is no longer a sacred encounter, but a problem to be solved, medicated, or ignored. We distract ourselves with work, entertainment, or endless scrolling, hoping to outrun the unease that gnaws at us. But as Jung observed, the psyche doesn't let us escape so easily. Fear is persistent because it's trying to wake us up. It's a call to reconnect with the parts of ourselves we've lost, to rediscover the myths and symbols that give shape to our inner world. Consider the story of Aisha, a 42-year-old teacher who spent years battling anxiety. Aisha's fear wasn't tied to any single event, it was a constant hum in the background of her life. She tried therapy, medication, meditation, but nothing seemed to quiet the unease. One day, during a particularly intense panic attack, she had a vivid dream. She was standing in a dark forest, surrounded by towering trees. A figure emerged from the shadows, not menacing but familiar, like a version of herself she'd forgotten. The figure didn't speak but pointed to a path leading deeper into the forest. Aisha woke up trembling, but for the first time, she felt a strange sense of clarity. Jung would have seen Aisha's dream as a message from her unconscious, a symbol of the journey she needed to take. The dark forest, a classic archetype, represents the unknown. the place where the ego's control gives way to the mysteries of the psyche. The figure was likely an aspect of Aisha's shadow, inviting her to explore the parts of herself she'd buried: her creativity, her spirituality, her unexpressed grief over a childhood marked by loss. Aisha's story illustrates a key Jungian principle. Fear is not just a barrier, but an invitation. It's a signal that the psyche is ready to reveal something new, something that can only emerge when we're willing to face the unknown. For Jung, this process was inherently spiritual. He believed that true healing comes not from eliminating fear, but from finding a symbol or experience that reconnects us with the sacred. This might be a dream, a moment of awe in nature, a creative act, or a profound connection with another person. Whatever form it takes, it's a reminder that we are part of something larger than ourselves. At the heart of Jung's psychology is the idea that fear is often rooted in the shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves we've rejected or denied. The shadow isn't inherently negative, it's simply everything we've pushed away to fit into society's expectations or our own idealized self-image. It might be the anger we suppress to seem kind, the ambition we hide to avoid judgment, or the vulnerability we bury to appear strong. But what we repress doesn't disappear, it festers, manifesting as fear, anxiety, or self-sabotage. For many of us, the shadow is a source of shame. We fear that if others saw our true selves or doubts, our flaws, our secret desires, they would reject us. So we build walls, crafting personas that protect us from exposure. But the shadow is not so easily contained. It leaks out in moments of fear, when we feel exposed, inadequate, or out of control. Take David, a 50-year-old lawyer who prided himself on his calm, rational demeanor. To his colleagues, he was a pillar of strength, always in control. But privately, David was plagued by fear of making a mistake, fear of losing his reputation, fear of being seen as weak. One day, during a high-stakes case, he snapped at a junior colleague in a way that shocked everyone, including himself. The outburst felt like it came from nowhere, but in truth, it was the shadow-breaking Throver moment of repressed anger and fear that David had spent years trying to bury. Jung would argue that David's fear was not just about the case or his reputation. It was about the parts of himself he'd rejected, the vulnerability he refused to acknowledge, the anger he deemed unacceptable, the human imperfection he couldn't accept. His fear was a signal that his shadow was demanding to be heard. Integrating the shadow doesn't mean giving in to destructive impulses. It means acknowledging them, understanding their origins, and finding a way to coexist with them. For David, this might mean admitting that he's not always in control, that he feels fear like everyone else, that he's human. By facing his shadow, he could begin to release the fear that kept him trapped in a cycle of perfectionism and self-criticism. Jung's approach to fear was alchemical. He believed that the psyche has a natural tendency toward wholeness, a process he called individuation. Fear, in this view, is not a dead end, but a crucible, a place where transformation can occur. By facing our fears and listening to the messages they carry, we can uncover the symbols that guide us toward integration. Symbols, for Jung, were not just abstract ideas, they were living, dynamic forces that connect the conscious and unconscious mind. A symbol might appear in a dream, a piece of art, a story, or a moment of insight. It's a bridge between the known and the unknown, a way of making sense of the chaos within. When we engage with symbols, we tap into the deeper currents of the psyche, finding meaning in what once seemed meaningless. Consider Eleanor, a 30-year-old artist who struggled with a paralyzing fear of failure. Every time she sat down to paint, she was overwhelmed by self-doubt, convinced her work would never be good enough. One night, she had a dream about a bird trapped in a cage, struggling to break free. The bird wasn't weak, it was fierce, full of life, but the cage held it back. When Elaine awoke, she realized the bird was a symbol of her creative spirit, trapped by fear. Inspired by the dream, Elena began painting the image of the bird. As she worked, she poured her fear, her frustration, and her longing into the canvas. The painting wasn't just art, it was a dialogue with her unconscious, a way of giving voice to the shadow. Over time, Elena's fear didn't disappear, but it transformed. It became a source of inspiration, a reminder that her creativity was worth fighting for. Jung believed that symbols like Elena's bird are the key to transforming fear. They give shape to the formless, meaning to the chaotic. They allow us to see fear not as an enemy but as a guide, pointing us toward the parts of ourselves we've neglected. By engaging with these symbols through art, writing, meditation, or simply paying attention to our dreams, we begin to integrate the shadow, moving closer to wholeness. Jung's concept of the collective unconscious adds another layer to our understanding of fear. He believed that the psyche is not just individual but connected to a shared reservoir of human experience, archetypes, myths, and symbols that transcend culture and time. Fear, in this view, is not just personal but collective, rooted in the universal struggles of humanity. Think of the archetype of the hero's journey, a story found in every culture. The hero begins in a place of comfort, faces a call to adventure, and must confront fear in the form of trials, monsters, or the unknown. This journey is not just a myth, it's a map of the psyche, a reflection of the process we all go through when we face our fears. The hero doesn't defeat fear by destroying it, but by moving through it, discovering their own strength in the process. In our modern world, we've largely lost touch with these archetypal stories. We live in a culture that prizes rationality and control, dismissing the symbolic as irrelevant. But as Jung warned, when we disconnect from the collective unconscious, we lose our sense of meaning. Fear becomes a symptom of this disconnection, a hunger for the myths and symbols that once gave shape to our inner world. For Jung, the antidote to fear was not to suppress it but to engage with it symbolically. This might mean exploring myths, creating art, or simply paying attention to the images that arise in our dreams and imagination. By reconnecting with the collective unconscious, we find a sense of belonging, a reminder that our fears are not just personal but part of the human story. So, what does all of this mean for us in our daily lives? How do we take Jung's profound insights and apply them to the fears that haunt us? The answer lies not in eliminating fear, but in changing our relationship with it. Fear is not an enemy to be defeated, but a teacher to be heard. Here are some practical lessons drawn from Jung's wisdom. 1. Listen to your fear. When fear arises, don't rush to dismiss it. Pause and ask, what is this fear trying to tell me? Is it pointing to a part of myself I've ignored? Journaling, meditation, or simply sitting with the feeling can help you uncover its message. 2. Engage with symbols. Pay attention to the images, dreams, or stories that resonate with you. These are the language of the psyche, offering clues to your inner world. Create art, write, or explore myths that speak to your fears. They can guide you toward transformation. 3. Face the shadow. Acknowledge the parts of yourself you've hidden, your anger, your doubts, your vulnerabilities. This doesn't mean acting on them impulsively, but recognizing them as part of your humanity. Therapy, self-reflection, or honest conversations with trusted friends can help. 4. Find a spiritual anchor. Fear often stems from a sense of disconnection. Find something that gives you a sense of meaning, whether it's nature, art, community, or a spiritual practice. This anchor can help you navigate fear without being consumed by it. 5. Embrace the journey. Transformation is not a destination but a process. Fear will always be part of the human experience, but it doesn't have to define you. See it as a guide, leading you toward a deeper understanding of yourself. Fear is not a flaw, it's a feature of being human. It's the voice of the soul, calling us to look deeper, to reclaim the parts of ourselves we've lost, to find meaning in a world that often feels chaotic. Carl Jung didn't offer a cure for fear, but he gave us a map, a way to navigate its depths with courage and curiosity. Like the hero in the ancient myths, we are all on a journey. Fear is not the end of the story, but the beginning of a new chapter. It's an invitation to step into the unknown, to face the shadow, to discover the symbols that light the way. When we listen to fear, we don't just overcome it. We transform it into wisdom, into creativity, into a deeper connection with ourselves and the world. So the next time fear whispers in your ear, don't turn away, listen, let it guide you to the parts of yourself you've forgotten. Let it remind you that you are not just a collection of doubts and struggles, but a soul on a profound journey toward wholeness. In that journey, fear is not your enemy. It's your ally, your teacher, your guide to a life lived with authenticity and courage.